Hello everyone, welcome to Java Expert. Today we are going to create fund transfer and accounts microservices using Spring Boot. As we already discussed in the last session, we are going to demonstrate everything in practical. So to start with, we are going to create fund transfer and account services today. In the next session, we will create reports and utility payments also along with gateway. Fine. I hope you understand the theoretical concepts of microservices and Spring Boot, which you have discussed in the last session. Fine. To start with our practical sessions, as we already mentioned, we need Java 1.8 and some Java based IDE and Postman. So I hope you install these softwares in your system. Fine. Let's begin. So to start with microservices using Spring Boot, I have installed Spring Tool Suite as an IDE to develop our practical steps. In two ways we can create Spring Boot application. Since I have Spring Tool Suite, I have these options in my IDE itself. If you click on files and go to new, you can find Spring Starter project. If you don't find this option in your IDE, there is one more way. There is a portal called, I'll show you, start.spring.io. Go to this site, go to this portal, you can find this page where you have to input the details related to your project. You can select main project, you can select the language, Java, Spring Boot version, and you can fill the project metadata here. Okay, and you can select the Java version is 8 and packaging is Java. Once you're done, just click on the generate. It will provide the jar file, the basic jar, production ready jar will be generated. That project you can import into your IDE and we can start working on that. Fine. As I already have this option in my IDE, I'm going to use that. Okay. Let's begin. Fine. I'm going to new Spring Starter project. You can see here it is already connecting to start.spring.io only. Fine. Let's now fill up these details. Fine. Mentioning group artifact. So we are going to create account service first. So artifact is account, description and package. You can now refer these things. Click on next. So when click on the next one, so you can find this page where we have to select some starter project from the Spring Boot. So this is the beauty of Spring Boot, where in normal way, if you're going to build any Spring application in traditional way, we have to find the dependency from Maven or somewhere and we have to manually build a POM file, and that's how it was working. But now it's come with some starter project. So what we need now, so we need some endpoint, we need some database to store, and we need some server to run it, right? So we know what are the things we need. So this is how it works. Just we need a web related steps, right? So type web here, you can find these things. There is a starter project called Spring Web. You can find the description here. It will provide the RESTful services and Spring MVC, and it will provide the inbuilt Tomcat server also. So if you add this dependency like this starter project, Spring Web starter project, automatically all the related libraries will be imported into your project. That's the beauty of Spring Boot, right? And again, now we have all REST related things. We need a RESTful endpoint will be there. Spring MVC is there. Tomcat server is there. Now next thing is we need some database to store our data, right? Okay, so that's how Spring Boot provides some H2 database, inbuilt database. It's not a production grade database, but for our development purpose to test our small microservices, this will be useful for us. That is, just type H2 here. So you can find H2 database, right? We will use this for our development purpose. Next one is, okay, now we have a Tomcat server and REST endpoint latest steps we have, and we have H2 database also. How we can communicate with our microservices with database? We need some driver, right? So that's how we have JPA. What is JPA? So JPA means the Java Persistence API. Basically, it is a specification. The implementation is Hibernate. and in short term, data will be represented as a Java object, right? We don't write any native queries, so everything we can deal with Java object itself if we use Spring Data JPA. Fine. So this is what we are going to use it now. Fine. So this is what we need for this account service. Fine. We will next and click on finish. So you can see the progress here. So if you are doing the very first time, it may take some time because all the libraries needs to be downloaded from the Maven repository. So as I already did, okay, everything being already copied to my local. If you are doing very first time, it may take some time. Fine. You can see here my account service is ready now. Just open and you can find basic class account application is ready. So this is what your main class. This is where your application will start, right? Now we'll create our necessary classes. We'll go. So this is how one basic microservice architecture will be. We will have a controller and we will have a service and we will have repository, right? To represent our data in the database, we will have a model, right? So we will create first model. First we need to define what are the data field we need. So first we will define the model, create a model package first. Export. And we need a repository. And we need service. And we need controller, right? And we have created all the packages, so let's create all your classes. Fine, we'll go with model first. Just consider we are going to create an account base class, account related stuff. Create account as a class. So normally what are the fields we may have for the accounts, right? So we will create those fields. Private, account code, account type will be there, account name, then account holder address. We will keep in this way. So let's create getters and setters for this. So this is any IDE will have this option. You can go to source and use these options. You can easily generate headers and setters, and you can override toString method also, right? So I already said if you use JPA, everything will be deal with our Java object itself. So this is what your table now. Okay, now we have to put some annotations over here. So we have to consider this is our table. So we have to put as an entity here. This is our annotation. Entity, right? Now we have to mention, we have to tell, okay, this Java object for this table. So we have to mention here table, and we have to mention name here, right? What I'm mentioning, and I'm not giving in caps, as a count, right? Now the one more thing we have to mention is out of 4 bits, what is our primary key? Basically ID. So account code will be ID. So there is an annotation called ID, right? That's it. Our model is ready now. Let's go to repository. basically we'll have separate repository for each model to perform our DB related activities. Okay, we have to create only interface here. I tell you, this is our account repository, right? See, because see everything is already implemented for you. If you want to override anything, then only we have to write our own methods. Otherwise, nothing is required. You just extends JPA repository. Here you have to mention this repository for which table, right? So we have created accounts module. So account, right? So put our class name here, and id means what is the primary key type, right? So it is our in what I think it is string, right? That's it. Now our repository is ready, right? All our basic DBA related activities can be performed with the repository itself. If you need any special things, any special need, then only we have to write our custom methods. Otherwise it is not required. Now I'm going to perform only the basic stuffs, so we are not going to write any custom methods, right? In upcoming videos we will perform all those steps. We will create our custom methods and we'll perform all those steps, but now we are going to perform only basic things, so we are not writing any custom method here. Fine, let's go to service. So before moving to service, the one more important here you have to mention is annotations. As I already said, everywhere we are going to place annotations here and there, so which will know serve a purpose. Here we have to put repository as an annotation. Just keep in mind this repository annotation. Then we are going to mention service annotation also, and I will explain what it is, right? Now just keep it in mind. Now let's go to service. So one basic thing which you have to keep in mind that whenever you are designing the application, the service and repository and controller, all this layer needs to be loosely coupled. We theoretically knows, but how we can implement it? Okay, Spring comes with this dependency injection and inversion of control, all those features, right? So how we can effectively use that? So that's where this power of interface will comes in place. We have to use it effectively, right? So whenever you are going to write in a service class, any repository class, we have to write interface for that, and top of that you have to implement it. So already repository we have created only the interface, so basically this is already loosely coupled. The same way service also we have to write an interface and we have to implement it, right? So first we'll create a interface. Account service, right? Okay, so we'll put a method. So basically what our account service is going to do, so we have to understand the business need. Based on that only we have to write it, right? So account service is going to have a one method which will accept the account as a parameter, account object as a parameter, and will return the same object as a return type. So this is what this account service is going to do, right? So return type is account, and the method name, what we can do, create account. So this input parameter also account type, right? Correct. So now we'll implement this one on the same package itself. Now we'll create account service implementation. Normally we will use stub impl, right? Now we will implement account service. Here also we'll have option no add and unimplemented methods. It will give the basic stuff. So here we can write our steps, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to create a new account, right? Fine. So whenever you are calling this create method, what it should do, it will call the repository and it should insert this account object in database, right? Fine. Now we have to call the repository, right? Fine. So this is where our the Spring's dependency injection will work. Account repository will auto-write this one. I hope you will understand. Already know what auto-write it is. So auto-write means we can inject the object from the Spring container. Basically, whatever the object is being maintained by the Spring container, we can inject wherever we want. Okay, so account repository is being maintained by the Spring container, so we're injecting that object in account service, right? Okay, so here we have to mention service annotation. What it means? Now I already said there is a one more place, account repository. We mentioned repository annotation. In account service we are mentioning service annotation. So what is the difference? Basically what these annotations are actually doing. Okay, comparing service and repository annotations, we need to consider component annotation also. These all three annotations are stereotype annotations. Component is general purpose stereotype annotation, whereas service and repository are some special purpose. All these annotations are doing the same job. What it does is it will inform the Spring container that these objects needs to be maintained by the Spring container, right? So if we are mentioning at service on the startup, survey account service and IMPL object will be created and this entire life cycle will be maintained by the Spring container. So this is what is going to do that. But by seeing that service annotation, we will come to know, okay, this class is for service. By seeing this account repository, you will come to know, oh, this is for the repository. For repository, there is a one specific exception. There's some data related exception will be the additional feature of repository. But other than that, the base functionality for these annotations are same, right? I will move to write the business logic of create account. What it is going to do is nothing, simple thing. We are going to call this method called, right? Okay, as you know, in the account repository class, we are not write any R method because basically it's an interface. We have extended JPA repository, right? So it is being everything already implemented. You can see the same method. That's it. You have to call the same method. You have to pass the object. That's it. I will pass the account. It will return the same type as a. It will return the same type. Whatever we are inserting here, save the whatever the object we are saving here, it will be returned. Right. So we will put return statement. Right. That's it. Now our business service classes ready. We are not doing any fancy things here. We are very basic thing. If you ask me, the production grade service class, no, based on we are not doing any validation, we are not handling any exception, just to demonstrate how this flow works. That's it. Now let's move to our controller class. Let's create a controller. Account controller, right? We'll create. So here also, what our controller is going to do is it will receive the account type as an input and will return the same thing. So we're going to create a method, something called we can put it like post account, or we can create account here also. Fine. Now we have to mention here request body annotation. Right. So we are mentioning request body annotation because in the request body we are going to get this account object, right? So return type also we already mentioned. Fine, we will do that. Now there are a few annotations we have to use it here. The first thing is once this create object is called, what it has to do. So it has to call our service, right? So first we will create a service object, right? Account service. So whenever you auto-wide anything, we have to use only the interface. So that's how we can achieve this loosely coupled, right? Then only we can achieve that we can decouple these components. So we have to use interface, right? Account service and auto-wide it, right? Now we'll call that method account service dot create, and we'll call this account. It will return accounts only, no? So we can directly put return over here, right? Why it is throwing here? What important? Fine. It looks like some basic Java class, right? So how it can be a controller? If you take any of our traditional Spring or Struts framework, to make particular class as a controller, we need a lot of configurations, right? But here it is simple. We have to put one alternative. REST controller. Yes, that's it. And rest of the thing, our Spring Boot, the Spring container, this auto configuration feature will take care of it. This account controller class, now it is a controller. Fine. Now, if we take this controller, we may have multiple endpoints. No, we may have this account controller. We may have multiple endpoints. So, for which endpoint this account create account method is to be called. So that's where you have to mention. Okay, this is basically a post method. So here I have to mention post mapping. Right, post mapping. So here we have to mention our URL, right? Create account. So account controller is common for the method which is going to comes under this account controller, but if you want to mention any base URL for that, you can mention here, right? That will comes under request mapping. So that here we can mention our base URL, what it can be, like, it is banking services, like banking, we can mention it, right? Okay, so this is a base URL banking, and for this create account, that URL will be create account endpoint, right? Okay, now we have done with our coding, so everything we have done now. So there are a few things we have to do. That is, we have to go to this application.properties. So this is where the place we can control our how this application should run. So there are few configurations we'll do it here. The first thing is, as I already said, we may have multiple services for application. So each application will run in a different port. So this is where the place you have to mention in which port this application should run, right? So just type port, it will automatically show those options. Server.port. So what we can mention, 333. We will run the service with 333, and we can mention our application name also. Spring.application name. Account service is our application name. And one more thing, we are using H2 database, right? So we have to enable the H2 console so that we can able to log in into that H2 database, and we can see table and data, all those stuffs. So it will be like H2 option will be like this one, spring.h2.console.enabled. You have to make it as true, right? So that's it. So this is a very basic steps we are doing with this property. A lot more things we can do with this, but now some basic steps we are doing it here. Fine, let's start our application. We will test it. We'll go to run as. Either you can select Java application or Spring Boot app. Both will do the same thing. I'll anyway select Java application. Let's see. Yeah, there is no error. Now it is successfully started. We can see this console output over here. So what are the things we have to note here? So we can see this start with 333 port, and one more thing, this database URL. We need this to log into the database. We will just copy this one, and first we will go to database and we'll see that, right? Localhost port is 333 h2 colon console. You can see this page. This JDBC URL, you change it to which you have copied it, right? It will be like JDBC h2 mem. Normally it's tested with some accounts, but normally it will be some random number. Remove that entirely and copy and to test connection. It's successful. Now connect it. Now you can see the accounts table, right? As you know, created the object for accounts, the table is automatically created in database. You select and run. Now there is no record because we have not performed anything. Now we'll test that, right? Go to Postman, create a new request, the post request, and URL will be here. It is 333. This is the base URL banking and create account. Go to body. I already prepared the JSON, so I just directly copying here, right? So this is what the model we have created: account code, account name, type, and address, right? Just we'll check once whether we have created the JSON properly. You have to compare with this one, no? Account code, account name, account type, and address. Yes, it looks fine. Send the request. Yeah, we got a response, no? So this is what we're expecting. The object which we are passing it should be stored in the database, and the same thing we have to get it back. So we got the 200 OK response, as well as we got the same object back as a response. Now we'll go to database and we'll see. Now we'll select run. Yes, now object is saved in database. We can able to see it here, right? Now we'll give one more request. I'll test it over there. We'll put down not 2. Send. We'll go to database. Check. That is also saved. Now try to modify something in the account code 2. We want to modify something. It is not a savings account. It is a current account. In database we already saved savings account, but 1 or 2 we want as a current account. Account code is our primary key, so that is not got changed in our request. Now give the request, send, right? You can see the response. It's a current account. Go to database and see it is updated to current account. So basically, if you want to update something using the API, if primary key is not changed, it will check if the record is already there. If it is there, it will update it. Otherwise, it will insert it. For this particular record, particular account code, data was already there, so it got updated. Fine, no? Yes. So quickly we will write a one more endpoint to retrieve the record from the database, whatever you have saved it, right? So first we will shut down the service first. Okay, so write a one more method. So it won't get any input. So whenever it calling this endpoint, all the accounts whichever is there in the database, it should be returned, right? So we'll have account service. So before now writing the controller, we have to write the service layer, no? Then only we can able to get it. So first we'll update the interface. public. Basically it will not be a single account, so it will be list of account, right? So we have to put list of account is a return type and get accounts, so there will not be any input here. So this is what it's going to be. This input we have to be the input, because the list will be there in the many packages with many libraries. Have to be careful, so you have to use Java utils. And go to implementation. So here what we have to do is we're going to use the same repository dot find all, right? So it will return list of accounts, right? So we will remove this, put return. So now our service is ready. I'll go to controller. So here our account service dot get accounts, right? Okay, it should be list of account, right? Yeah, fine. Now we'll mention the endpoint for this. So it's basically going to be a get method. So we will use get mapping. Yeah, that's it, guys. Now we'll start our service and we'll test this one. Run as Java application. Yeah, now it is started. Now first we'll copy this, because for every run this you will be some random number. There is a way to fix this one, I'll tell you, but now we'll copy this. Go to browser. Yes, change this one, connect. Yes, if you see this table, it will be empty again because it's a temporary table. For each restart, the table will be newly created. Now we'll test it. Go to Postman. We'll create from begin first. So we created one entry. We will create one more with the current account. Two, and create one more. One more we have savings account. Right. Now we'll go to DB and check. Yes, we will have this all three records. Now we will execute our get method. It is get accounts, right? There is no input here, right? There is no JSON input. So directly get accounts and send. Yeah, we are getting is method not allowed. Yeah, we are getting method not allowed error because it's a get method, but we have mentioned here post. Change it to get, try it out. Yes, now we are getting list of accounts. So whatever we being stored in the database, we are getting in the JSON format as a response. All this no 1, 2, 3. Fine. So we'll stop the service now. We will quickly create the fund transfer service also in the same way. We will test few things and fund transfer also. Closing all those things now. Okay, we create it very quickly. It's going to be same thing only. So, but we need a service for a gateway and all, so that we can test our gateway, how this routing, all those stuffs are happening. So we'll create quickly, right? So again, this is also going to be same thing. Yeah. Project is ready now. We'll quickly create all our controller service and repository stuffs and we'll test it quickly. All our packages are ready. So now we'll create the model for fund transfer. So what are the fields may required? Right. Transaction ID. From to mount. And what else? We put IFSC. Fine. We'll do header and setter and we'll override toString also. Yeah, fine. And we'll quickly put repository. Yes. So yeah, I ought to remember it's not a class, it should be interface, right? Interface. We have to extends JPA repository. That's it. So here fund transfer and it is string. Right, repository is done. Go to service. So as I already said, we need an interface for this. So we are going to have two methods. Process transaction basically, which will receive accept the fund transfer as a parameter. And click list of, this is to for get method to retrieve the list of transaction as we did for get transactions. No parameter here, right? Now I'll go to quickly controller. We'll accept the fund transfer object. So now we'll perform all the annotation things. First body. Mm, fund transfer service. We have not implemented fund transfer service yet, I think, so we have to implement. So we'll perform all the annotation things here. Right. It will return the same thing. We'll write get method also. Get transactions and no input for this. Transfer dot get transactions, right? So get mapping of the transactions. So now our controller is ready. So go to service. We have to implement this, no? So we have created the interface, new class. Transfer service implementation implements fund transfer service, right? So here we already mentioned we need fund transfer repository dot say fund transfer. Return it. Same thing here also. Fund transfer dot find out. That's it. Okay. Now implementation also ready. How to mention service. We have missed, right? Yeah. So and repository also we have to mention repository annotation and model also. I think we missed to mention annotation stuffs. So what is entity table equal to fund transfer, right? And ID will be transaction ID is the ID for us. I think we have done all those steps, right? Service done, controller is done, service implementation also done. I think we can go right. So the rest of the thing is the property part. We'll go there. We'll mention the port. Yes, server port. We will run with 555, and our application name, it is fund transfer service, and we'll enable the h2 console equal to true. I told you that when every start we are getting some random string for this database string, right? That we can fix it out. You have to mention the data source URL here. So spring dot data source dot URL. So here you have to mention. So this is for fund transfer, right? So I will mention fund transfer underscore DB. Right. Now we'll see how it works. I will go to main class and we'll start our application. Run as Java application. Right. We are getting some error. URL must start with JDBC. Okay. Basically, we have mentioned only we mentioned only the fund transfer alone, right? Basically, you have to mention something like this JDBC, because this is a driver name you have to mention now. So we have to mention JDBC H2. So this entire URL we have to mention. So this is the place we normally get the random string. So now we can fix it with this fund transfer underscore DB. Now we will start it out. Now again we are getting some other error. So whenever you're getting error, please not be panicked. So this is where the place we can learn the things actually. Whenever you're getting the error, that's where you can able to learn it. You read the error message properly. What is failed fund transfer service in controller class required bean type fund transfer service that could not be found. So what it is telling is we are trying to inject the object type of fund transfer service, but the Spring container it is not able to find out. So basically this object is not getting created. So why we put service annotation, right? If you put a service annotation, it should be created, and we'll see why it's not happening. This is where you have to put it, right? Okay, so should be the place where you have to mention in the concrete class you have to mention it, but where did we mention then? Okay, we mentioned the service annotation in the interface. Basically, it's not make any sense. We have to mention in the implementation class, right? Yeah, I think now it works. Yes, now it is started successfully. You can see the H2 console, whatever you given the property that you can able to see here. So you can use this fixed URL to connect with database, and you can see the port is 555. Now go to browser and we'll see our DB first. So now we are running with 555, right? View our URL, test connect table name, what we mentioned in the model, it is created. Now we'll test. So this is the JSON which I already prepared. I will use the postman to test our service. Now I'll create a new, so it can be post method. Double five. Banking is the base URL, the common URL mentioned in the controller, and process transaction. Right, go to body, select raw and JSON, and place our JSON and send. Yes, it's success now. We got a response with the same data which we have passed. Go to database, check. Yes, it is saved. But the problem is, see, we have account code from is stored properly, amount, everything is stored properly, but account 2 is null. But what we are passing here, account 2, we have passed this value, but we are getting back as null. So what is the problem with account 2? We have to check it out. So there, where did we missed? We'll check the model first. There is a typo here because the spelling of account is not correct. It should be account, right? Correct this one manually. We'll generate it again. Yes, done. And there will be a problem in toString also. Yes, now we'll restart the service and we'll test it again. Yes, it is started successfully. Go to database, connect. It is empty. Now we'll send the same request. Yes, now we got the response with account code 2 also. We'll do a couple of requests now quickly. Transaction 2, same from and to account, will change only the amount 2000 and 3000. Transaction is 3. Now go to DB and we'll see. Yes, so all these transactions are stored in the database. Now we'll check the get method. So get method, banking, and get transactions is there, right? Transaction. So there's no input, just click. Yeah, we got all the response, all the transactions we have processed already. Yes. So that's it, guys. I hope you understand basic things about how we can create microservices using Springboot. So we will see it in next video. Thank you, guys. Bye.